Hi everybody, my name is Rose Gerald, Relationship and Transformational Coach from Cape Town, and I would like to welcome you to my Creative Journey series channel on YouTube. Today I have a highly inspirational young man known as one of South Africa's rising stars. He has had many awards. The top young South Africans honored by the Mail and Guardian, top 200 young South Africans honored by the JCI in 2021, one of the outstanding young persons of South Africa, Inside in Education, top 100 South African shining stars, and he has also been nominated as one of Africa's thought leaders at a conference in Tokyo. And over and above that, he has co-authored a book and he has authored his own book. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to the inspirational, incredible young shaper, Mlamuli Mbambo.
Thanks for having me.
I don't know where to begin with you because you have such an incredible story. So maybe you'd just like to tell us, you know, what you studied and why you studied, and then how you got nominated for these prestigious young thought leaders, aspiring young South African shining stars. So I'm Mla.
All right. So I studied in Durban High School. And in Durban High School, I was fortunate enough to have a very inspirational economics teacher. And he was a practicing economist, as in he had been in the private sector, retired, and now was teaching it. So he made it come alive. He made it real. He would speak about how it affects the world that we live in and stuff like that. So with that background, I then wanted to study economics and went to varsity and did become economics and finance. And fortunately, what I thought it was is what it was, and I did enjoy it and I passed very well. And then I went on to the Standard Bank graduate program, which is an awesome thing. You rotate around the bank and you learn different parts of banking. And I landed then in debt review and credit rehab, which is one of the projects that I did in the graduate program. And when I looked at the data and the people that were in debt review and credit rehab, I was really shocked. And I always say that was my aha moment, like, whoa, what is wrong here? Because you had doctors, you had chartered accountants, you had engineers swimming in debt and struggling with their finances, you know, because typically when you look at the mainstream media, it's portrayed as finances are an issue for like poor, you know, people who are not really don't have great jobs, etc. But in that database as a business analyst, I saw so many people with great incomes, but that not matching the life that they're leading in terms of their finances.
A lot of medical doctors, specialists across the board would say, I'm good at medicine, but I'm terrible at finances, because they were not taught those skills.
Medical doctors, I always say that unfortunately you are not paid in medicine. So yeah, you kind of also need to learn numbers and finance, because you're not paid in what you studied. So it is a skill, but what I do differently is that I start with the mindset. I start with the belief system and address those, because it is a skill. Yes, there are certain things that you must know, but when you find that chartered accountant and people that do know finance end up in debt review and credit rehab, then there's clearly more to it than the skill. It's kind of like going to gym. I mean, we all know that, yes, to work out, you know, you have to lift the weights, but it's the mindset and your relationship with health that determines if you'll wake up that morning and actually go and do what you're supposed to do.
People that have told me when they set up their medical practices, it is unbelievable how much credit is available for them to set up their practices and buy their ECG machine and their laptops and whatever. So do you not think that would contribute to that as well, like easy debt?
That's because now we've got kind of an instant gratification culture, especially among the youth, and credit allows that to be instant. But I think one of the big problems is that people are not aware of the cost of credit. You know, if you ask a typical person, what is the interest rate on your loan? Most of them say, I don't know. Or they'll just say it's high, but they actually don't know that number and don't know what that number translates to in terms of the extra money that they have to pay. So I think for me, it's an education process, and it's also really knowing what the cost of getting into that debt is about. So for me, that one of the main challenges with the business that I've chosen to do is that people don't know that they don't know. You know, I think because we grow up handling money and seeing money, etc., the assumption is kind of that we know what we're doing. And because it's kind of one of those topics that's still taboo to a certain extent, people don't have honest conversations about it. And people don't only lie to others. From the coaching that I've done, I see that people actually lie to themselves even about how much they actually know this money thing. Because one of the questions that I love asking in my workshops is, who's the best person to handle your money? And instinctively, you want to say me, you know, you want to say, yes, I am. But then the follow-up question is, how much have you spent on learning how to manage this thing? Which means you are not the best person to handle it right now. And unfortunately, people, it's the elephant in the room. People put it under the carpet and tend to engage it when they're 65 and they're retiring, and you know, stuff has really gone south. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to say, hey, look at this thing. It's not shameful. Let's take it out of the carpet. It's not the elephant in the room. Let's discuss it. And then let's be having honest conversations so that we actually improve the real situation, because most South Africans middle class look the part, but if you were to see, you know, most of their houses are built on credit and debt, and they have sleepless nights and financial stress. And also an interesting stat is that finances are the second leading causes of divorces.
Yes.
So sometimes in my coaching, I'm sort of a marriage counselor when there's a couple that's, you know, angry with each other about money. My goal is to get South Africans and Africans to just talk about it. I think that's where it begins, where we can have honest conversations. You know, for example, people will have a friend that's doing super well. Maybe the friend has 10 properties, investment properties, that is. But for some reason, they'll never bring themselves to actually ask, hey, how do you do it? I want to do something similar, you know? Instead, you'll have issues of envy and jealousy and snide comments and stuff like that. So another critical conversation that I usually facilitate is the Black professionals speaking to their family back home in terms of, I don't like the term, it's called black tax, but I believe it's just helping your family. But even that needs to have percentages, limits, and it needs to be a proper conversation. Because think about this. So the young professional then goes and buys an Audi or a Range Rover, which by definition decreases their disposable income. But when they go visit back home, let's say Umlazi or Chesterfield or something, when they go back home, the family sees the Range Rover or the Audi and thinks, hey, now we can ask for more money. Meanwhile, that's the very thing that's actually decreased their disposable income. So those are some of the conversations that are not had, which really fuel frustration and people getting into debts and et cetera, et cetera.
And black tax, yeah. So would you say that it would also be part of that conversation?
Definitely, it's a conversation that must be had, and there must be limits. And also, there's a difference between a hand out and a hand up.
Yes.
And so if this money is going to your siblings or cousins, etc., people who are young, then it should be a hand up. And if it's your granny, etc., then that's fine. That can be a handout. It's cool. So,
Yes.
but those are some of the conversations. But your spirituality with money, what kind of place does it vest in your spirituality? I always say that I am blessed to be working on what I believe to be my purpose at such a young age. Most of my peers, when I ask them what's your purpose or passion, it's either they don't know, or if they do know, it's very far from what they're doing. So it's very different from their actual 9-to-5 job type of thing. So I always say that try to incorporate some spirituality in terms of what you do for your living or your job or whatever, or side hustle, because I think that's when God or the universe or Allah, depending on which divinity you believe in, actually works with you. And I always say that in terms of the book that I wrote, Winning the Money Game, I didn't write that book alone. Hey, there were many divine moments and like moments where, so I had the framework in terms of what I wanted to pen down, but then the skeleton was just filled with another force, with another spirit that was just translating it through me. And I'm telling you guys, like, that is such an amazing place to work from, when you are aligned with your spirituality and the work and the gift and the service that you are there to serve humanity with. And I think it's so sad that we translate jobs equals money. I always say that value equals money, which means that you can generate money by doing various things. And hopefully one of the things that you work on is stuff that you're passionate about, that is your purpose, that is your calling. And for me, that is what I call retirement. Retirement for me is working on something that you're passionate about, that's your purpose, that you're serving humanity, that's your gift to humanity and others. Whereas, because you should see the people that have retired, as in, I'm 65, I stopped working. They literally crumble because I think as humans, we are supposed to be, serving. We're supposed to be doing something, growing, etc., etc. So retirement for me, and I think there's a quote that says, do something that you love and you will never work a day in your life. Not saying that it will be easy, but there's just, when it's Monday for me, it's like, yes, it's Monday. I'm going on my journey. I'm traveling more. So find, for those that listening, and just find your passion, find your purpose, find your gift. And something that held me back for quite some time. I mean, the book was written in 2017, 2018. It was stuck in my laptop until 2020, because I was a stickler for perfection. And unfortunately, when you write a book and you read and you can continue to read on the subject, you're always learning new things, right? And then you keep on saying, oh, I need to change that, I need to change that.
Yes.
And for me, it was a lesson that I learned, I think, through COVID happening, was that progress is better than perfection. Realize that 20, maybe that 10% that you did extra to get perfection really didn't make a difference. Sometimes we'll say that, no, I don't really want to, put myself out there, etc., etc., because I'm humble. whereas maybe there's some self-doubt that you're not attaining. So for me personally, when COVID happened, for the longest time, people have been telling me that, hey, get on social media, make videos, get a YouTube channel, you know, you need to put yourself out there. And I was like, no, man, that's vanity, and I'm humble. Similar to the awards thing, you know, I wouldn't apply for awards because I'm like, no, I'm humble. But when I sometimes look at it critically, I think there was also a portion of it which was self-doubt. That, you know,
Now, would you call that self-doubt, or would you call it fear? An internal fear?
Yeah, an internal fear. That there are actually better opportunities that are coming by, but you're not getting there because you haven't, you know, your hand is not open to receiving that. So by being versatile with your approach, maintain the goal, but versatility with your approach, you find that you can actually achieve a lot. Another key one, if you're going through challenges in this period, is to seek help, guys. I've learned the power of actually saying, hey, right now I'm struggling with X, or ABC is not going well. And some people actually jump at the opportunity to be like, oh, wow, you know, you've done so many favors for me. I remember that conversation that led to this. I remember you linking me to this person, but I just thought that a person like you doesn't need any help. It's about removing our mask that we put on of, you know, all together and everything is well, and the whole Instagram kind of life that we portray, but being real with people. And, you know, sometimes it's just needing to have a cup of coffee with someone and have a conversation. Sometimes it's asking someone to open a door in the organization for you, and then you pitch and get the work. I think when you are going through challenges, seek help. You'll be amazed at how willing and how people actually do want to help out.
The work I did previously, I also managed big sales teams. And what a manager often did was neglect the high performers and spend their time on people that were just on the edge. And eventually, with the high performers, you would find that their work would drop to average. So you have to check in with everybody. So I love that, check in on your strong friend. We have to drop those masks. It's very powerful.
Definitely. And something that I noticed and did not understand was, you know, I've got some friends that doing exceptionally well. Like, I think super intelligent when I have conversations with them. And when you speak for a bit longer, they have so many doubts about what they're doing or where they're at. And I'm like, really? Do you know how great you're doing? Weird thing about this world is that the intelligent are full of doubts and the fool is very confident.
I love that.
One of the most powerful things that I've got a mentor called Dave Wilson, and he said something very powerful to me when I think I was struggling with fear / self-doubt, etc. He said that, you know, you don't need to be the full book. You don't need to be a whole book ahead of others to be great at something. If you are just one chapter ahead, people learning that next chapter that they didn't know before you is more than enough. You know, so it goes to what Martin Luther King Jr. said, where it's just focus on the next step that you have to take. And when I do my financial literacy with entrepreneurs, I find that there's so much delay in terms of having the business plan. Unfortunately, most business plans never actually raise money, and people never actually read them again. So they tend to be a waste of time. So a person is waiting for the business plan, or they're waiting for funding, or they're waiting for the perfect time. No, just next step, start. What is the next step? And for me, when the challenges of COVID happened, that thinking of next step, progress, just take it. has really been a key differentiator in terms of being able to move forward. Things that I enjoy is asking, are you a kangaroo? And obviously, person is not a kangaroo. I'm like, then why do you want to move like one? You know, so we want to leap, we want to jump
I love that.
like a kangaroo instead of just taking steps as humans do. So one of my next steps is that the book will be on exclusive books, which is very chuffed about that one. So unlike school, mistakes in business or in the work environment are all just taking you to where you want to go. It's not a demerit, it's not an X or whatever. It's just to the next step of where you was selected as one of 20 Africans to go to Japan. So it's called the Tokyo International Conference for African Development. In my year, it took place in Yokohama, to be specific in terms of the actual conference. And it was all about how can Japan work with Africa in terms of synergies, in terms of finding a way forward for African development. And my role was more around the SDGs. So financial literacy touches on certain sustainable development goals from the UN in terms of quality education, inequality, and I think you would know that in South Africa we have the highest inequality level, and various other aspects. So I spoke to that in terms of if Africa was to kind of have this type of education model, as in adding financial literacy maybe to life orientation, these are the things that would actually happen differently, because there's this notion or there's this reality, actually, it's not a notion, that people are going from poverty and getting a bursary or scholarship and studying, and then when they get their jobs, they then go smack bang into debt. So are you really economically emancipating these people when, you know, the one end is poverty, and when they are quote unquote successful, the other end is debt, and stuff like that. So that was my role on that one.
If people are interested in this, how can they contact you? Where can they contact you? And I personally would like to know how long your workshops are if I need to recommend this to anyone.
All right. So funny and interesting story. Initially, when I started, they were 4 days long.
4 days. Wow. That's
Yes,
amazing.
I wanted to share everything in painstaking description and detail, you know. And for the longest time, for a time, I was stubborn about it, but the market kept punching back. And now I've got a menu of it. So we've got a half day, which is plus minus 3 hours. We've got a full day, which is about 5.5 hours. Then the longest one is 2 days, a 2-day workshop. And we also do it in a version of coaching, which is 6 1-hour sessions once a week. I always say that training is awareness, and then coaching is implementation. So when you attend the training, you are aware of what's going on, but when you do the coaching, you actually implement what you want to do differently. And then obviously it's also via the book, Winning the Money Game, A Guide to Financial Well-Being. And the workshops include the book in terms of how I price it, because the truth of the matter is people, or most people, let me say, most people, and I've been guilty of this as well. You attend a training, you get the training manual, and you never open it again.
Exactly.
So I would rather that you attend my training, and then you're more likely to open a book and read a book. Because so it complements each other that way, because the book is the story format of the main lessons that are in the course anyways. So that's those are some of the ways that we can reach each other. It's also available as an ebook on Amazon. And then in terms of reaching me specifically, so Facebook, it's Winning the Money Game Facebook page. YouTube, I've got a YouTube channel, Winning the Money Game. Got some great videos there as well. And then LinkedIn, it's Mlamuli Mbambo. Instagram, it's Mlamuli Mbambo. And then we're also on Twitter as Winning the Money Game.
That is brilliant. So I hope that you can reach thousands and thousands and millions of South Africans with this incredible initiative. It has been such a privilege to speak to you, Mlamuli. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you for having me. And to your listeners, remember that financial education is the bridge to financial well-being.